Her single dad helps a simple woman, then finds out she's a millionaire's daughter. It was the kind of night no one willingly stepped into, wind howling like a warning, rain slamming the earth in sheets, and thunder growling above as if the sky were breaking open. Jake Morrison hadn't expected visitors. No one came out this far. Not at midnight. Not in weather like this. So when the knock came, sharp and urgent, he froze. He wasn't the type to panic. A single dad raising an 8-year-old daughter alone on the outskirts of town couldn't afford to. But something about that knock felt off. Too desperate. Too timed. He just tucked Lily into bed after calming her down from a nightmare. Another knock, this one slower, like the person was reconsidering. He grabbed the wrench under the sink, just in case, and peeked through the peephole. What he saw didn't match the feeling twisting in his gut. A woman stood there. Soaked to the bone. No umbrella. No coat. Just a hoodie clinging to her like a second skin. She looked straight ahead, not into the peephole, but her jaw clenched like she was bracing for rejection. A car breakdown? A runaway? She could be trouble. Or she could be in it. Jake opened the door halfway. You okay? She didn't answer at first. Her lips moved, but the words caught. Then, barely audible, can I come in? Jake studied her. Pale skin, shadows under her eyes, and something distant behind them. Not fear. Not innocence. Just exhaustion. She looked like someone trying to outrun something bigger than herself. Reluctantly, he stepped aside. Just for the night. Emily. That's all she gave him. No last name. No backstory. Just Emily. She curled up by the fireplace in silence, trembling from the cold. Lily, wide-eyed and curious, had peeked into the room before Jake shooed her back to bed. You're not from around here, Jake said. She shook her head. Not really from anywhere. He didn't push. He'd been lied to before, by friends, by family, by the woman who walked out on him and Lily 5 years ago. But there was something different about this stranger. A contradiction. She was fragile but watchful, lost but composed. She didn't act like someone who needed saving, but she clearly did. The storm kept her grounded that night. Jake offered her the couch and the only spare blanket he owned. She didn't say thank you. Just nodded, curled into herself, and stayed silent until morning. By sunrise, the storm had passed, but she hadn't. Jake found her making coffee in his kitchen, his flannel wrapped around her shoulders, humming a tune like she'd lived there her whole life. You stayed, he said cautiously. She turned, calm. I'd like to help out for a bit. If that's okay. Jake blinked. You don't even know me. You let me in. That's enough. He wanted to say no. Wanted to ask why she hadn't called anyone. Wanted to protect Lily. But instead, he said, we've got chores if you're serious. She was. Over the next few days, Emily patched the broken screen door, helped Lily with her math, and somehow made the broken-down kitchen smell like a bakery each morning. Still, she avoided personal questions. Where was she from? Silence. Family? None. Phone? Lost it. Something wasn't right, but she never gave him a reason to force her out. Jake's neighbor, old Mr. Carter, stopped by one afternoon while Jake was chopping wood. Who's the lady? He asked, glancing toward the house. Friend, Jake said quickly. Strange friend. That trucker from the station said someone matching her description was asking about back roads. Real nervous-like. Jake stiffened. I'll handle it. Later that night, he confronted her. Why were you asking about back roads? Emily didn't lie, but she didn't tell the truth either. I was trying to avoid someone. Someone dangerous. Jake crossed his arms. You're putting Lily at risk. That made her flinch. I would never. I'd leave before I let that happen. But she didn't leave. And Jake didn't make her. Because Lily adored her. And Jake was starting to believe her. One night, Emily found Jake sitting on the back porch, a whiskey bottle in hand, staring into the dark. My daughter was born during a flood, he said without prompting. My wife left 6 months later. Said she never wanted to be a mother. Never looked back. Emily said nothing, just sat beside him, knees tucked up, head bowed. You ever leave someone like that? He asked quietly. Emily hesitated. I ran from someone, but I never left someone I loved. He looked at her. And do you love anyone now? Her eyes shimmered. I think I might. He kissed her that night. It was brief, cautious, but it changed everything. 1 week turned to 2, then 3. Emily settled into their lives like roots slipping into soil. But Jake knew it couldn't last. Not with unanswered questions trailing her like ghosts. The truth came when Jake least expected it. It was Lily's 8th birthday. Emily had gone into town for a cake, but never returned. Hours passed. Jake's panic boiled into rage. Then headlights finally cut through the darkness. Emily stumbled and bruised, shaking. Not from weather. From something else. Jake grabbed her shoulders. What happened? I saw him. At the gas station. The man I ran from. My father. Jake reeled. Your father? Emily nodded. He's not just rich. He's dangerous. Controlling. He wanted me to marry into another corporate family to protect his empire. When I refused, he tried to lock me in a private clinic. I escaped. Jake stared. You're a millionaire's daughter? Was. I left everything behind. He backed away. You lied. I protected myself. And dragged me and my daughter into this? Tears welled in her eyes. I didn't mean to fall in love with your life. With her. With you. He didn't sleep that night. But in the morning, Lily ran to Emily and clung to her like she'd always belonged. Jake made his choice. He kept her secret. Because he saw who she really was. Not a rich runaway. Not a liar. But a woman looking for a home, just like him. A reward for kindness he never saw coming. And with that, their inspirational story, a blend of family drama, mystery, and second chances, was just beginning. The days after Emily's confession moved like heavy fog, quiet, tense, and full of unspoken thoughts. Jake couldn't look at her the same way anymore. He wanted to trust her. Hell, part of him still did. But knowing she came from that kind of world, a millionaire's daughter on the run from a father who would rather imprison her than let her choose her own path, turned everything sideways. Jake didn't just feel betrayed. He felt stupid, used. And yet, Lily clung to her like she was the mother she never had. That complicated everything. The morning after Emily confessed, Jake found Lily outside on the porch, brushing the mane of her old, battered pony figurine. Is Emily still my friend? She asked quietly, not looking up. Jake crouched beside her. Why would you ask that? Because you're mad at her. Jake hesitated, then placed a hand on her shoulder. I'm not mad. Just confused. Sometimes grown-ups have secrets. Lily frowned. She's still good. I know it. Jake didn't respond. His daughter always saw people more clearly than he did. He just hoped she was right this time. Inside, Emily had started packing. No words. No excuses. Just folding the clothes she'd borrowed and placing them into a duffel bag. You don't have to go, Jake said, standing in the doorway. Emily looked at him, eyes rimmed red but steady. Yes, I do. She loves you. And you. Jake looked away. She zipped the bag. Your silence is my answer. But just before she could lift it, Lily came barreling into the room, arms wide, voice high. You promised you'd help with the garden today. Emily knelt to her level. I did. But I think. Jake cut in. She's not going anywhere. Not yet. That day in the garden, Jake watched the two of them, Lily digging holes for carrot seeds, Emily gently patting soil over them like they were gold. It hit him harder than he expected, the sight of a family that wasn't supposed to be, but somehow was. But peace was never built to last when secrets stayed buried. Jake went into town to buy new fence posts. That's when he saw them, two black luxury sedans parked by the old gas station diner. Men in suits talking to the cashier. Showing photos. One of the pictures was unmistakable. Emily. Jake froze. Turned. Walked out fast and drove home even faster. When he got there, Emily was teaching Lily how to make bread from scratch. Her hands were covered in flour, her cheeks flushed from laughing. Jake yanked her aside. They're here. Emily's blood drained from her face. You said they wouldn't find you here, Jake hissed. I said I hoped. Hope won't protect Lily. Emily nodded slowly, eyes flicking to the little girl now watching them with curiosity. I'll leave tonight, she whispered. Jake shook his head. No. We all leave. Emily blinked. You'd come with me? I'm not letting my daughter say goodbye to another woman she loves. They left just after midnight. Jake's old pickup rattled down back roads while Lily slept curled under a blanket in the back seat. Emily gave directions. She seemed to know every turn, every ditch, every abandoned trail that avoided highways. She was a different person behind the wheel, calculated, alert, and scared. Eventually, they pulled up to a long-abandoned cabin nestled deep in the woods, one she said she used years ago during a college backpacking trip. It was falling apart, but it had walls and a roof. We'll be safe here for a few days, she said. Jake still couldn't believe he'd left his entire life behind on her word. The next few days were rough. No electricity. Barely any food. But Emily made the place feel like home in little ways, braiding Lily's hair each morning, carving wooden spoons from branches, even catching fish from the nearby stream. It was almost too peaceful, until Jake woke up one night to find Emily missing. He followed the sound of quiet sobbing and found her sitting behind the cabin, knees pulled to her chest. He sat beside her. "What's going on?" "I shouldn't have stayed," she said. "I should have run the first night. You saved us. You gave Lily something no one else could." She looked at him then. "You think I deserve this life?" "I don't know what you deserve," Jake said, "but I know what you gave us, and I don't want to lose that." They kissed again, but this time it was different. No fear, no tension, just truth. The next morning brought something unexpected. A knock. Jake grabbed the rifle. He peeked through the slats of the front window. Not a suit. Not her father's men. An old man. Emily gasped. "Dad." Jake froze. "You said." "It's not him. That's my real dad." Jake turned to her. She looked shaken. "I didn't lie. My biological father. He left when I was a kid. My mother remarried into money. The man chasing me, he's my stepfather." Jake lowered the rifle. Emily opened the door. The man smiled. "Took me years to find you. I heard what happened. I want to help." They talked for hours. Jake watched from a distance. Emily cried, hugged him, laughed. It was the first time he'd seen her whole. Later, she told Jake everything. Her real father had tried to find her for years, but was blocked by her controlling stepfather's lawyers. After she disappeared, he finally tracked her down through a private investigator who sympathized with her story. "I'm free," she whispered. "If we want this, we don't have to run anymore." Jake looked at her, then at Lily, then at the sky opening above them with the first hint of morning light. He nodded. "Let's go home." But this time, home wouldn't be where he once lived. It would be where they built something new. A strange woman. A single dad. A daughter who saw through all the noise. It wasn't a perfect family, but it was real. And after everything, that was the only reward for kindness that mattered. The cabin was gone now. Not literally, but emotionally. Jake had loaded the last bag into the back of the borrowed SUV. Emily was fastening Lily's seatbelt in the middle seat, gently brushing a strand of hair from her forehead. The sunlight filtered through the thick woods like golden ribbon, stretching across the dirt path that led back into the world. It was time to leave hiding and begin again. They had a plan. Emily's biological father had offered a small country house he owned just outside of Willow Creek, a sleepy town nestled in the hills. It wasn't fancy, but it had a fenced yard, good neighbors, and enough space for Jake to start over as a freelance carpenter. Emily, ever the quiet fighter, had signed up for nursing assistant classes at a local clinic. Lily simply asked if there were horses nearby. Emily had smiled. "I'll find one for you." For the first time in weeks, there was laughter again. Hope. A future. But what none of them knew was that a shadow still followed them. And it wasn't Emily's stepfather this time. Willow Creek was peaceful on the surface. Kids rode bikes down sidewalks with peeling paint. Elderly couples sat on porches waving at passing cars. No one seemed in a rush. Jake liked it. He spent his mornings fixing broken porch steps, replacing shingles, and putting up drywall in neighbors' homes. Word spread fast, the quiet single dad with a steady hand and sad eyes. Everyone liked him. Emily kept to herself, but the nurses at the clinic grew fond of her. Especially after she helped save a choking child in the waiting room before her first day of training. Lily started school. She drew pictures of ponies and wrote stories about magical mothers and brave daddies. It was calm, almost too calm, until one night, Jake walked out to the shed behind the house and found the door slightly ajar. He never left it open. Inside, nothing was missing, but a single paper was left on his workbench. A printed photo of Emily and Lily sitting on the porch. Someone had been watching. Jake didn't tell Emily right away. He didn't want to scare her. But the next night, he sat in a chair by the window with a bat in his lap, just in case. 3 hours passed before he saw the flash of movement. A tall man, dark jacket, watching the house from across the road. Jake didn't hesitate. He burst out the front door, shouting, chasing, heart pounding. The man ran fast. Too fast for someone local. Jake didn't catch him. But in the grass, he found something the man had dropped. An ID badge. Security. Wexler Holdings. Jake's stomach twisted. Emily's stepfather's company. He told her everything. This time, she didn't cry. She didn't scream. She got cold. Focused. Like something inside her clicked back into place. "They found us," she said simply. Jake shook his head. "We're not running again." "You don't understand," she said. "You can't fight these people. They don't call the police. They own them. But Jake didn't back down. Then we fight smarter. The next few days, Emily called her father. He brought in a lawyer, an aggressive, no-nonsense woman who'd once taken down an oil conglomerate for labor abuse. She filed a legal protection order, revealing that Emily was being stalked by agents from Wexler Holdings. It didn't stop the watching. 2 nights later, Emily found their mailbox ripped off its post. A note inside. You're still his. That night, Jake sat Lily down. Something might happen. If it does, you stay quiet. You hold Emily's hand and do exactly what she says. Got it. Lily looked scared, but she nodded. Daddy? Yeah. Are we still a family? Jake looked at her. At Emily. At the home they were trying to build. Yes. No matter what. The breaking point came a week later. Jake had gone into town for supplies. Emily stayed behind with Lily. It was supposed to be a normal morning. But then a black car pulled into the driveway. Emily knew the shape of it too well. She grabbed Lily and locked the back door. She peeked through the curtain. The man who stepped out wasn't her stepfather. It was worse. It was Jake's older brother, Marcus. He hadn't seen him in nearly a decade. And Marcus didn't smile. Jake's not here, Emily said through the door. Marcus tilted his head. You're not what I expected. Emily's heart pounded. What do you want? I came for my niece, he said casually. Jake's not fit to raise a child. She stiffened. She's not your concern. Oh, but she is. I've got court papers. Your little family situation? It's a mess. Ex-con brother. Runaway rich girl. You think a judge won't raise eyebrows? Emily didn't open the door, but her voice was steel. You touch that child, and I will bury you. Marcus's smile vanished. He slid a folded document through the crack under the door. Tell my brother I'll see him in court. That night, Jake returned to find Emily pacing. She told him everything. He cursed. Loud. It was the first time Lily ever saw him yell. Jake had always kept his brother out of his life. Marcus had a gift for manipulation, a thirst for control. He didn't want Lily for love. He wanted her out of spite. And now he had legal standing. This is because of me, Emily said quietly. No, Jake said. This is because people hate to see kindness win. The next week was a blur of lawyer visits, affidavits, and court filings. But something else happened during that chaos. Jake realized something. He didn't want Emily to stay anymore. He wanted her to be part of them. Not a guest. Not a fugitive. Family. So one night, in the backyard under string lights and stars, with Lily playing nearby and tension thick in the air, Jake took Emily's hand. I know it's crazy. And I know we're in the middle of hell. But I want you with us. Forever. Not just for Lily. For me. Emily's eyes filled. You sure? She whispered. Jake smiled. I've never been more sure of anything. She leaned in. And just as their lips touched, Lily shouted from the porch. You're getting married? Jake laughed. Emily nodded. Only if you're the flower girl. But the next morning, a letter arrived taped to their door. Nice family. Shame if you lost it. Emily didn't sleep that night. Because the war wasn't over. It was just beginning. Jake Caldwell didn't sleep that night. The taped letter on the door, nice family. Shame if you lost it, had pulled him into a spiral of rage and dread. It wasn't just a threat. It was a declaration. Whoever wrote it didn't just want to scare him. They wanted control. Emily found him in the kitchen around 4 a.m., staring at the letter over a mug of untouched coffee. We should run, she whispered. Jake shook his head. No. That's exactly what they want. She leaned against the counter, arms crossed over her chest. They're closing in. Your brother on one side, my stepfather's people on the other. We're surrounded, Jake. He looked up. Then we stand in the middle, together. It was noble, brave. But by dawn, the war had already taken its next step. Lily didn't show up to school. The call came just after 9:30 a.m. Jake's phone rang once. Then silence. Then a video text. The footage showed Lily sitting in the back seat of a car. She wasn't crying, but her little face was pale. Her backpack was still on. She kept glancing toward someone off camera. Then a voice. Jake, you've got until 6 p.m. to decide. You give her up. Or we do. The video cut off. Emily collapsed to the floor. Jake had never seen her scream like that. They went straight to the police, of course. The moment the word kidnapping left Jake's mouth, every officer at Willow Creek PD turned rigid. Then, the station chief walked in. Jake Caldwell? Yes. The chief's jaw flexed. I'm going to stop you right there. Jake froze. What? You're under investigation. There's a report. submitted by your brother, alleging you fabricated threats and staged this whole abduction as a custody ploy. Emily's jaw dropped. That's insane. You saw the video. Sorry, ma'am. No verified location. No license plate. No timestamp. Could be months old, for all we know. Until we verify, our hands are tied. Jake lunged forward, seething. My daughter's life is at stake. I suggest you get a lawyer, the chief said coldly. Emily pulled Jake back, and in that moment, they both understood. They were on their own. The house was too quiet when they returned. Jake sat on the porch steps. Emily paced. Her phone buzzed with useless messages from her father's team, empty promises about checking security contacts and monitoring communications. No one moved fast enough. Then, at 1:42 p.m., Jake's phone rang again. Blocked number. He answered on the first ring. A man's voice, soulless, calm, filled the line. You have until 6. We're done being patient. Jake's voice cracked. Let me talk to her. Click. Emily knelt beside him, gripping his hand. We need to think. We need to figure out who has her. Jake whispered, It's not Marcus. She blinked. How do you know? Because Marcus wants custody, not leverage. This is something else. She stilled, and suddenly her eyes widened. My stepfather, she breathed. He wants to punish me for disappearing, for running. But he'd never do this directly. Jake nodded slowly. Then who? Emily's face went pale. Alvin. Alvin Rhodes. Her stepfather's fixer. Former Marine turned corporate mercenary. He wasn't flashy like Marcus. He didn't make public threats. He made people disappear. I saw him once, Emily whispered. Years ago. I was 15. My mom had found bruises on my arm, threatened to tell someone. Alvin came the next day. He talked to her for 15 minutes. Jake's stomach turned. And then, she apologized. Said she was confused. The next week, she fell down the stairs. Died instantly. Jake stared at her. You think he pushed her? I know he did. A silence hung between them. And then Jake stood. We're not waiting till 6. They started with the letter, the only thing Alvin left behind. Jake scoured it, looking for prints, hidden marks, anything. Then he noticed the bottom corner had faint red dust, brick or clay. Emily stared at it. The old tannery near the county line has that color dirt. It used to be Alvin's training site. It was a long shot, but it was all they had. They grabbed what they could, flashlight, bolt cutters, duct tape, and a loaded flare gun Jake kept locked away, and drove. The tannery was dead. Abandoned since the 1990s, it sat like a decaying husk behind a barbed wire fence and rows of overgrown pine trees. The wind howled through shattered windows. Emily stayed in the car, watching every exit. Jake climbed the fence. Inside, the smell of old chemicals and rust filled his lungs. He crept forward, his boots crunching gravel. And then, faintly, a child's voice. Lily. He followed it. Behind a collapsed set of stairs and past 2 rusted machines, he found a steel door chained shut. From behind it, a soft sob. Daddy. Jake nearly broke. I'm here, baby. I'm right here. He cut the chain. The door creaked open, and there she was, a little shaken, but untouched. He pulled her into his arms. Then, a click behind him. Alvin stood in the shadows. He wasn't tall, but he was built like stone. Cropped hair. No emotion in his eyes. Mr. Caldwell, he said. You really should have waited. Jake stepped in front of Lily. It's over. You're not getting her. I don't want her, Alvin replied. I want Emily to remember who owns her. Jake didn't hesitate. He raised the flare gun and fired. It struck the wall inches from Alvin's face and ignited a shelf of chemicals. Fire bloomed. Jake grabbed Lily and ran. They burst out of the tannery as flames lit up the sky behind them. Emily screamed and ran to them, pulling Lily into her arms. Jake didn't look back. He didn't need to. Some lines, once crossed, can't be uncrossed. Later that night, with Lily safe and sirens echoing behind them, Jake and Emily sat on the back porch. She's okay, Emily said for the 10th time. She's safe. Jake nodded, barely speaking. Then he turned to her. I was wrong. She looked up. We can't stay here. We can't pretend we're normal. Not with these people out there. She sighed. Where would we go? Jake wrapped his arms around both of them. Someplace they can't touch us. Someplace where the only thing that matters is the 3 of us. Emily didn't argue, because for the first time, they understood. They weren't running away. They were running towards something. A real future. Even if the past kept chasing. Jake hadn't slept in 3 days. He lay on the couch, his eyes fixed on the ceiling as the wind beat against the windows. Every creak of the floorboards upstairs made his heart jump. Lily was home. She was safe. But for how long? This wasn't just the story of a single dad trying to protect his daughter anymore. This had become a war, one that threatened everything he had rebuilt. Emily sat across from him at the dining table, still dressed in yesterday's clothes, a steaming mug of untouched coffee cradled in her hands. The soft golden glow of dawn slid through the blinds, brushing against her pale face. "We can't stay here," she said softly, for the third time that morning. Jake ran a hand through his hair. "I know, but I also can't live looking over my shoulder every time Lily walks to school." Emily set the mug down. "Then we disappear." He looked at her. "Like vanish?" Her jaw was set. Yes. By mid-morning, they were packing. Emily's plan was risky, illegal in parts, if someone wanted to be technical, but it was the only way to make a clean break. She knew people. People who owed her mother favors. People who didn't ask questions but got things done. Jake hesitated at first. The thought of fleeing, changing their identities, leaving behind everything his late wife had built for them, it felt like surrender. But then he looked at Lily, coloring quietly in the living room, blissfully unaware of how close she'd come to vanishing forever. This wasn't surrender. It was survival. The first step was to ditch all digital footprints. No phones. No banking apps. No email logins. Everything had to go dark. Next was transportation. Jake's rusted old Ford wouldn't make it far without being tracked. So Emily made a call. By sunset, a black sedan with stolen plates pulled up outside the house, driven by a silent man named Ray who gave them burner phones and a duffel bag of clean cash. Jake stared at the bag. Where the hell did this come from? "Reward for kindness," Emily said softly. "Let's just say someone finally paid their debt." That night, Lily went to bed thinking they were going on vacation. Emily told her it would be an adventure, full of new schools, new sights, and safer nights. But before they left, there was one final thing Jake had to do. He drove to his brother Marcus's home, alone. The mansion loomed in cold marble and steel. The security system blinked softly as Jake stepped through the open side gate, walked past the manicured hedges, and climbed the back stairs. He found Marcus on the balcony, sipping bourbon. "I expected you earlier," Marcus said coolly. Jake didn't waste time. Lily was kidnapped. Marcus's brow arched. "And I know you didn't do it, but you submitted that false report to the police." Marcus stood slowly. "You're not built for this world, Jake. You think being a good father is enough? That your kindness makes you safe?" He scoffed. "The world doesn't reward decency. It consumes it." Jake stepped closer. "The world didn't give me anything, but I'm leaving with the only thing that matters, my daughter. You'll be hunted." Jake's eyes narrowed. "So let them hunt. But if anyone comes near her again, I swear I'll burn every bridge and take you with me." Marcus didn't blink. "You've changed." Jake turned. "No, you just never saw who I really was." They left Willow Creek at 3:14 a.m. The town disappeared behind them as the dark highway stretched toward an uncertain horizon. Lily slept in the back seat. Emily drove. Jake watched the rearview mirror for miles. This wasn't just a suspenseful drama about a secret identity anymore. It was a story about rebirth. Emily revealed more during the drive than she ever had before. "My real last name isn't Hawthorne," she said as they crossed into the next state. "It's Rousseau. My mother changed it when I was little to keep my father's enemies away. Turns out, her own enemies were worse." Jake glanced at her. "Is that why you stayed away from wealth? From the spotlight?" She nodded. "I thought if I lived simply, they'd forget me. But money doesn't erase the past. It keeps it buried, until you get too close." He looked at her, really looked, and something settled in his chest. This wasn't just the rich girl with a hidden identity. She was someone like him, bruised by loss, running from ghosts, but still choosing to protect others even when it cost her everything. By noon the next day, they crossed into a quiet coastal town where Emily knew someone who could give them new papers and a fresh start. The apartment they were offered was small but clean. A warm view of the harbor, neighbors who kept to themselves, and a quiet street with no traffic cameras. It was perfect. Lily was enrolled in a small charter school where no one asked too many questions. Jake found a job fixing boats. Emily worked at the local bookstore. And slowly, they began to feel like a family. But peace never comes without a cost. 2 months later, a stranger appeared. He didn't speak to anyone, didn't buy anything. He just sat at the harbor bar, watching the dock where Jake worked. Jake spotted him on the third day. He didn't panic. Not yet. But something told him, this isn't over. That night, Emily came home to find Jake at the kitchen table, staring at a folded photo. "Who is he?" she asked. Jake slid the photo across. Emily paled. "That's Alvin's second. His cleaner." Jake's jaw clenched. "He's here. And he's not just watching me." Emily's voice broke. "Then we run again." But Jake shook his head. "No. This time, we finish it." This wasn't just a life-changing moment. It was the line between running and rising. Jake reached into the closet and pulled out the old flare gun. Emily stared at him. "You can't take him on alone." Jake met her gaze. "Then don't let me be alone." They stood together in the kitchen, the hum of the fridge the only sound between them, and for the first time in weeks, they weren't afraid. Because they had something stronger than fear. They had each other. And the fire inside them was just getting started. Jake knew the man watching them wasn't an amateur. You don't loiter at a harbor bar for 3 days without drawing attention, unless you're trained not to. Everything about the guy screamed military past, the squared jaw, the casual stillness, the methodical way his eyes scanned crowds. And Jake had seen that kind of calm before in a war zone, back when life was measured in seconds and instincts were sharper than bullets. Now, here it was again, back in his peaceful harbor town, staring him in the face. "His name's Mason," Emily whispered that night. "Alvin's right hand. He's not here to watch. If he's here, it means they've found us." Jake glanced toward the window, where a dim street lamp cast shadows across their tiny apartment. "Then we finish this before he finishes us." Emily looked at him like she'd never seen him more clearly. By the next morning, Jake had a plan. He took Lily to school early, giving her a tight hug before she walked off without a clue of the dangers surrounding her again. He couldn't tell her, not yet, but she deserved more than a life on the run. Then he met Emily at the docks. Jake had asked Ray, the man who'd helped them disappear, to trace Mason's burner phone through the black market tech connections Emily still had. If Mason was reporting to Alvin, the signal had to be relaying somewhere. Within an hour, they had a hit. Mason's signal bounced off a private satellite tower not far from here, Ray told them through the phone. Which means Alvin's still close. He never left the country. Jake clenched his jaw. "He's here. Watching. Planning. What does he want?" Emily whispered. Jake hesitated. "He wants you, Emily. Not for ransom. For control. Because you walked away from the legacy he tried to hijack. Your father's empire was built on real tech. Alvin's just a parasite." Emily swallowed hard. "So we give him something worse than silence." Jake raised an eyebrow. "Like what?" "Evidence. I've got encrypted files, contracts, money transfers, offshore laundering. My father saved everything." Jake looked at her, stunned. "You kept all that?" She smiled bitterly. "My version of a parachute." They met Mason that night. Jake approached him first, alone, walking into the same bar where the man had been camping out. The bar was dim, buzzing with murmurs and the clink of whiskey tumblers. Jake took a seat 2 stools away. "You're not very subtle," he said without looking over. Mason sipped his drink. "Wasn't trying to be." Jake smirked. "So what's the message?" "No message," Mason replied. "Just waiting for you to get tired of hiding." Jake turned to him. "Emily's not coming with you." Mason finally looked up. "That's not your decision." Jake leaned in slightly. "You don't understand. This isn't just some inspirational story of a rich girl gone rogue. She's my family now. And if you want her, you go through me." There was a pause. Then Mason chuckled. "You really think she told you everything?" Jake blinked. "What?" "Emily didn't just run from Alvin. She was supposed to marry his son. She vanished 2 weeks before the wedding, with her father's hard drives." Jake's stomach dropped. He stormed out, fists clenched, heart pounding, thoughts racing. Back at the apartment, he found Emily sitting at the kitchen table with an open laptop and tear-streaked cheeks. "So it's true?" he asked quietly. She looked up, startled. Jake stepped closer. "You were supposed to marry Alvin's son? You didn't just run away from corruption. You were part of it." "I wasn't part of it," she said quickly. "I was trapped in it." "Why didn't you tell me?" His voice was shaking. "Because I didn't want you to look at me like you are right now." Her voice cracked. "Jake, I was engaged when I was 19. Arranged. My father died 2 weeks before the ceremony and left everything to me, not just money, but files, secrets. I found out Alvin had plans to use my father's company for weapons trafficking. I ran." Jake paced the room. "You should have told me." "I wanted to, but we were falling in love, and I didn't want the past to poison it." He stopped. "What did you say?" She stood. I love you, Jake. That hasn't changed. Even if you hate me now. He stared at her, breath ragged, emotions boiling. I don't hate you, he said finally. I'm just trying to protect my daughter. And you've got a hurricane following you. That night, Lily asked why Jake slept on the couch again. He said he had a sore back. He lied. But when Emily walked down the hallway hours later, blanket in hand, and curled up next to him without saying a word, he didn't stop her. They lay in silence, hearts beating against the stillness. This wasn't just a single dad story anymore. It was a storm of pain, love, trust, and betrayal. And somewhere in that chaos was the beginning of something unshakable. In the morning, Emily went to meet with Ray alone, transferring the hard drives into cloud-based servers locked behind multi-layered encryptions. If anything happened to her, the information would go public. Jake, meanwhile, followed Mason. He trailed the man for hours, across alleys and rooftops, until Mason stopped near the shipyard and made a call. Jake climbed into position behind a crate, recording everything. What he heard chilled him. Emily's files are clean, but someone's tipped her off. We need to move up the timeline. Then Mason said the one name Jake didn't expect. Marcus Caldwell has agreed. He wants his brother out of the picture too. Jake's blood ran cold. His own brother had made a deal with Alvin. It wasn't just Emily they were hunting now. It was Jake. That night, Jake confronted Emily with the news. They're coming for both of us. And Marcus is helping them. Emily didn't flinch. Then we do what we should have done from the start. What's that? She looked him dead in the eyes. We exposed them. All of them. Your brother, Alvin, the entire network. You and I together. Jake stepped forward. You sure you're ready for this? Emily grabbed his hand. No one runs anymore. The next morning, the town woke to headlines. A full data leak of offshore accounts, tech fraud, and high-level blackmail schemes. Emily had pulled the trigger. Jake stood beside her on the balcony, watching the sun rise over the sea. Think we're safe now? She asked. Jake exhaled. No, but we're not afraid anymore. Behind them, Lily's laughter echoed through the small apartment as she danced to morning cartoons. They were a family, born of fire, and finally free. The news had gone viral overnight. Not in the way tabloids spin cheap headlines, but in quiet corridors of power, emails, encrypted forums, back-channel calls. The names exposed in Emily's leak were untouchable. Until now. Jake stood at the window of their tiny apartment, coffee in hand, watching the mist curl off the harbor. It felt like the beginning of something and the end of something else. Behind him, Emily packed a small overnight bag for Lily. They were supposed to be laying low. But Jake had made a decision. It was time to face what they'd avoided too long. He turned. We're going back. Emily froze. Back where? To the house. The one I inherited. Lily's never had a real home, Emily. She deserves more than an apartment filled with hiding and whispering. Emily hesitated. You sure it's safe? He looked her in the eye. No, but safety's not what she needs. She needs stability. Roots. Emily slowly nodded. The house sat on a quiet hill outside of town. An old farmhouse Jake had barely visited since his parents passed. He had inherited it just before the war, but never found the time or the courage to make it a home. Now, with Emily and Lily, it felt like the only place left to reclaim their future. The land was overgrown, the fence sagged, but the bones were strong. Solid wood. Honest work. The kind of place that had once raised strong families and could do so again. Emily stepped through the creaking door and took a breath. It smells like sawdust and ghosts. Jake laughed. Good ghosts, I hope. That night, Lily explored every corner of the house with wide-eyed joy, claiming a bedroom for herself and naming the chicken coop out back Princess Castle. Her laughter filled the air like sunlight after a storm. And for the first time in months, Jake felt it. Hope. But the past had one final secret to reveal. 3 days later, a letter arrived in the mailbox, no return address, just a wax seal Jake didn't recognize. Inside was a short, typed message. Lily was never meant to be your daughter. You were always the backup plan. The real father is coming. Jake froze, hands trembling. He didn't show the letter to Emily immediately. He couldn't. Not until he understood what it meant. Was it a bluff? A threat? Or the truth? The memory hit him like a punch. Lily's mother, Mariah, had shown up 6 years ago with a baby, a paternity test, and tearful apologies. Jake had accepted Lily without hesitation, because blood never mattered. Love did. But now the truth threatened everything. Jake spent the next day tracing the paper's watermark. It was custom or rare, expensive, used by old families with even older secrets. When he finally confronted Emily, she looked stunned. I've never seen this. But the seal, that's from the Rikers. They were close to Alvin's family. Old money. Old corruption. Jake blinked. You think Lily could be related to them? I think someone doesn't want her in your care anymore. The idea burned through him like fire. If Lily had Riker blood, it meant power, inheritance, leverage. And if the Rikers wanted her back, it wasn't for love. It was for legacy. Jake's jaw tightened. They're not taking her. Emily stepped forward. Then we do what we've always done. We fight. A week later, a sleek black car pulled into the gravel driveway. Out stepped a man in his 40s, sharp suit, salt and pepper hair, the posture of entitlement. He looked around as if the place offended him. Jake stood on the porch, arms crossed. The man nodded. You must be Jake. You must be lost. He smirked. I'm Sebastian Riker. I'm here for my daughter. Jake didn't blink. She's not yours. I have proof, the man said smoothly. Mariah was my surrogate. She never told you because it was easier to disappear with a war vet than fight me in court. Jake's fists clenched. You think a contract makes you a father? I think money makes things happen, Riker replied, stepping closer. But here's what you don't know. Lily is the sole heir to my estate. My brother died last year. I'm dying now. She is the last of the Riker bloodline. Jake stared at him, and suddenly something shifted. Not fear, not anger, clarity. That night, Jake told Lily everything, in the simplest, kindest words he could. Lily sat quietly on the porch swing, her little hands folded in her lap. So, he wants to be my new daddy? Jake knelt beside her. No, he wants you because you're valuable to him. But being family isn't about blood, baby. It's about who shows up for you, who stays, who chooses you every single day. Lily looked into his eyes. And you choose me? Jake swallowed hard, his throat tight. Every day. Forever. She leaned forward and whispered, then we don't need him. Jake hugged her tight. The next day, Jake returned to town and filed an official custody suit, claiming legal guardianship, backed by 6 years of school records, medical bills, and emotional testimony. The Riker name meant power, but Jake's record meant proof of love. Emily helped by reaching out to old allies. People who still believed in doing the right thing. A former judge, a child psychologist, a social worker who knew Jake's history with PTSD and still called him one of the good ones. Within a week, Sebastian Riker withdrew the claim. No press, no scandal, just a quiet retreat. Jake suspected he'd only done it because his health was worse than he let on. But it didn't matter. What mattered was that Lily stayed home. The next few months were filled with rebuilding. The house got a fresh coat of paint. Emily turned the old chicken coop into a greenhouse. Lily started piano lessons in town and joined a storytelling club. They hosted barbecues, built a fire pit, even adopted an old Labrador from the shelter. And one summer evening, Jake asked Emily to marry him. Not with a ring, but with Lily's tiny hands holding a crayon-scrawled sign that read, "Will you be my forever mommy?" Emily cried. She said yes. And so the story ended not with headlines, not with power plays or wealth or revenge, but with family, with kindness, with 3 broken people who found wholeness together. Jake, the single dad who had nothing but a kind heart. Emily, the rich girl with a secret, who gave up everything to protect what mattered. And Lily, the child who reminded them both that love wasn't what you inherited, it's what you built. They had no fortune, but they were rich in everything that mattered. Sometimes, the greatest reward for kindness isn't applause or recognition. It's the quiet joy of building something real. A family, a home, a love that lasts. This was their journey. This was their truth. And maybe it could be yours too. This has been another unforgettable tale from Ximon Stories, where ordinary hearts meet extraordinary moments. Subscribe for more true inspired, emotional, and dramatic tales that speak to the soul.